Magandang araw po sa inyo. Welcome po sa isa na namang episode ng online series ni Inang Pamantasan, kung saan ang pagkatuto ay walang hanggan. Ito ang PNU Talks. Ako nga pala si Jordan Madronio. Ang sign name ko po ay Teacher Jordan, ang inyong Learning from Home Buddy. Sa episode na to, ako po ay grade 4 teacher mula sa Philippine School for the Deaf o PSD in Schools Division Office of Pasay City. Ang ating pag-uusapan ngayon ay tungkol sa virtual education for deaf and hard of hearing learners at this time of global pandemic. Please don't forget to like and share this episode. I would like to greet our esteemed PNU President, Dr. Bert J. Tuga, our Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Loretta B. Toricampo, and to our OIC, ASDS, Dr. Arturo A. Tolentino, and of course to our OIC Principal, Dr. Maria Jessica S. Magallanes. To all of you who are watching right now, to the school officials, teachers, students, parents, and of course to our deaf community, good day. I had my presentation pre-recorded to incorporate sign language for our deaf viewers. If you have comment, question, suggestion, feel free to type it in the chat box. While you watch this presentation, I might be teaching in my virtual class. This school year 2020 to 2021 is indeed very challenging for all of us, especially for those in the special education. Planning and consultations were done to determine the delivery mode of teaching. We follow the blended learning approach. This refers to the learning delivery that combines face-to-face with any or mix of online distance learning, modular distance learning, and TV radio-based instruction. Blended learning will enable the schools to limit face-to-face learning, ensure social distancing, and decrease the number of people outside the home at any given time. Planning for online distance learning includes making sure the instruction is accessible as well as appropriate. The Department of Education has provided self-learning modules or SLM with the alternative learning delivery modalities offered for various types of learners across the Philippines. The integration of SLMs with the alternative learning delivery modalities, modular, TV-based instruction, radio-based instruction, blended and online, will help the Department of Education ensure that all learners have access to quality basic education for school year 2020 to 2021 with face-to-face classes is still prohibited due to public health situation. The implementation likewise applies to our deaf learners. Doubts were initially raised as to the effectiveness of the adopted modes of learning. Gradually, with the participation and earnest combined efforts of school officials, teachers, students, parents, and various stakeholders, we are pulling through in maintaining the quality of education. However, how effective are these modes for the deaf and hard of hearing learners? For deaf students, the move to remote learning and assessment is presenting new barriers, which include struggle to access lectures because it is much more difficult to lip read lectures and fellow students on a computer screen. Some deaf students rely on good quality listening conditions. However, the quality of sound can sometimes be poor on online platforms. Many deaf students rely on sign language interpreters, and internet connectivity may sometimes affect their attention to details. Watching interpreters on a screen or following live transcript can require more concentration than usual. It means that deaf students can quickly become tired and saturated, as this requires more concentration on their part. Some deaf learners have no access to internet and have limited knowledge of technology. Deaf learners are considered bilingual. Their mother tongue is sign language. Written language, be it in English or Filipino, is their secondary language. Among the two written languages, they are more versed in English language because of American Sign Language or ASL influence. This school year is our pilot year of using Filipino in Araling Panlipunan and Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao or Values Education. The school has been really diligent in planning and implementation efforts during shift to remote online education during COVID-19 pandemic. The Department of Education and their school recognize the barriers in which we try to solve each day. We have students from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Just like any other public school, the number of our enrollees went up dramatically due to closure of many private schools. Hence, methods are being adopted to assist our deaf learners to maximize this school year in this time of pandemic without compromising their safety or highlighting their disability. Module worksheets were delivered through Module Depot system and LDC. Module Depot system is a delivery mode where the module worksheets were delivered in the area near their house in a specific day and time. It applies to NCR and nearby provinces. To ensure safety, teachers and school personnel wear personal protective equipment or PPE during the delivery and retrieval. Those deaf students who are living in far provinces would receive their module worksheets through courier. Close coordination with teachers and guardians is observed. Deaf and hard of hearing learners were provided with DEPED Gmail accounts for them to use in the online class. We use the permanent Google Meet link for everyday virtual classes, following the suggested number of hours by the World Health Organization. We teachers were tasked to make our own video lessons of our respective subject. Before doing so, we have undergone training workshops in video editing. It was tough to many, considering the availability of technology resources like computer, lightings, and high-definition camera. Despite the challenge, we were able to come up with different video lessons from kinder to grade 12. Most of us communicate through hearing and learning. This corresponds on how we learn. Deaf and hard of hearing people have restricted ability to communicate, in which reshapes the ways in which they must be taught. People who have hearing loss are either pre-lingually or post-lingually deafened. People who are pre-lingually deafened have lost their hearing before they acquired language. People who are post-lingually deafened acquired their hearing loss after they acquired language. For each group, the impact of hearing loss and the degree of deafness will vary. Some received cochlear implants early at birth. Some rely on spoken language. Many communicate with a combination of spoken language and sign language. Some have normal language and literacy development. Some may have issues with literacy. It varies greatly, so it is important to understand the needs of each learner. All these factors needs to be considered when assessing the types of reasonable adjustments. People who have postlingual hearing loss generally acquired their hearing loss later in life. They may or may not benefit from listening devices. Some may learn sign language as means to diversify access to communication. As with people who are prelingually deafened, it is important to assess the needs of each learner before implementing any reasonable adjustment. This is because the requirement of each individual can be diverse. Students who have been deafened in early childhood can be very different to students who have lost their hearing later in life in terms of educational disadvantage. For example, their range of vocabulary may be limited, which in turn may affect their level of English literacy. We have wide varieties of deaf learners. Some are able to lip read, Kaya dapat po maayos ang buka ng ating bibig sa ating pagsasalita. Hanggat maaari po, dapat walang beard or mustache sa mga male teachers para po makita ang buka ng bibig. At distracting din po yun sa mga deaf. Plain colored shirt is also encouraged for teachers to wear. Avoid printed or neon colored clothes because it makes their eyes get tired easily. And it's also distracting on their part. Some can speak verbally. Some can hear high or low frequency or intensity sounds. In our school, we use total communication as a mode of instruction. Total communication incorporates all means of communication. Formal signs, gestures, finger spelling, body language, listening, lip reading, and speech. Deaf and hard of hearing students prefer visual learning strategies. This can be challenged in an environment where much essential information is delivered exclusively by word of mouth. With the way of my presentation today, I put more emphasis on the visual representations of the topic we discuss. Prior to the opening of this school year, we were able to make video lessons for our deaf learners. We included sign language in our visual learning materials. When we put words or sentences, we make sure that the font is of the right size for them to see, because most of our learners use mobile device in their virtual class. Students with hearing loss may need to use assistive technology to support their learning process. This assistive technology can be laptop, where software such as Skype can be used to deliver sign language, interpreters, or captioning. For some, it will be in the form of listening devices. With the technology evolution, deaf and hard of hearing people can relay information using their mobile devices. When we have them watch videos, we make sure that there's a caption or interpreter available. The impact of hearing loss can cause learning delays. Time consideration is given for deaf and hard of hearing learners for work completion. We follow the K-12 curriculum of the Department of Education, but learning pace may vary among the deaf learners. Based on research, many children with hearing loss experience difficulty in areas of academic achievement. Modification of learning materials is important for them to understand the lesson. During this pandemic, the learning modules given by the Department of Education are based on the MELC, or the most essential learning competence. We modified these modules into colored supplementary worksheets and incorporated more visual representations of the lesson. Students with hearing loss may appear isolated in the learning environment. The possibility of social contact and interaction with other students is often limited. And this isolation or separateness may have an impact on learning. It affects their confidence as well. This is true not only in school setup, but also in the house. If no one in the family know how to sign, the child becomes isolated, resorting to look for friends online to chat with. This is in contrast if the child lives with parents or family members who know sign language. The child would be confident expressing his feelings, thoughts, and ideas. In our virtual classroom, we encourage them to sign, fingerspell, and we also give them time to socialize once done with their assigned tasks. A minimum of 10 minutes and a maximum of 15 minutes of instruction is allotted for each subject. Staying online all throughout their class program is not required. It is an online, offline class for those who rely on free mobile data. Much time is allotted for accomplishing their modules at home. Some of them prefer to stay online to chat and socialize with their classmates. Flag ceremony is also done twice a week. Readily available video is played while we sign the national anthem, Panunumpa sa Watawat, PSD hymn, Pasay City hymn, and the Pasay City K-12 jingle. During our virtual class, wearing of school uniform is highly encouraged. We ask them to open their camera and raise their hand if they have a question or type it in the chat box. Parents and guardians play an important role in the learning process of their child during pandemic. Also, they are the first ones to learn the technical aspects of online class. Moreover, we coordinate to them the delivery of the learning modules of their child. According to the World Health Organization, more than 5% of the world's population, or 466 million people, has disabling hearing loss. 432 million adults and 34 million children. It is estimated that by 2050, over 900 million people, or 1 in every 10 people, will have disabling hearing loss. With the projected increase of people with hearing loss for the next 35 years, and the challenge brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, it is vital to find innovations in educating our deaf and hard of hearing learners. No one should be left behind in terms of access to quality education, be it in basic or tertiary education. We may consider to revisit, evaluate, and do consultative studies to better improve our degree programs, making it more inclusive for the deaf community in the Philippines. Currently, improvement plans are being adopted. Continuous dialogue between the deaf community and the different government agencies take place to help implement the provisions of the Filipino Sign Language Law, or the FSL law. While the said proposals and its implementation are temporarily put on hold this time of pandemic, inclusive education and the best quality of instruction for the deaf and hard of hearing learners are the utmost priorities of the government, private sector, and all of us in the academia. Whether remote learning or regular face-to-face new normal or ordinary times, children with disabilities and those of deaf and hard of hearing must be afforded with accessible education. Thank you very much. Sa muli, ako si Teacher Jordan at sumainyo ang PNU Talks.